All right, let's bring in our experts. Manish Sonthalia is with us, VP and Fund Manager, Motilal Oswal Asset Management. Manish, it's been a volatile week, a turbulent week. Lots of headlines which dominated sentiment, dominated the market. But as we move on, of course, getting into the May month, how do you see the market shaping up?
Yeah, I think every day you have some new headlines or the other. So, I mean, yesterday and day before yesterday, it was the S&P downgrade. In the previous month, just one day before expiry, you had the GAR issue. So I think there's a bit of uncertainty out here. I think May is going to be a big month. There's going to be a big move in the markets in the month of May. Negatives are all there in the price. So I would tend to think that most of the negatives are already there in the price. And if the market was to make a big move, it should be on the upside. So I would remain optimistic as in the previous month.
Of course, let's focus on the earnings season. Here we saw private sector banks consistently outperforming. ICICI Bank was a case in point, even HDFC Bank, a fantastic set of numbers. It's as if nothing can go wrong. On the other hand, it's the PSU space which seems to be all across the place in terms of shoddy asset quality, earnings not being up to the mark. Manish, how would you position yourself? Because to an extent, private sector banks are fairly expensive in terms of valuations, whereas the PSU banks look fairly attractive, but asset quality issues are still keeping them under pressure.
Yeah, asset quality was expected to remain under stress. I have been maintaining that asset quality would actually see the peak deterioration either in this quarter or in the next quarter. So now that rate cuts have started happening, even this concern would alleviate over the next 6, 12, 18 months. It's that the rate cycle has begun, rate cutting cycle has begun, and you're not going to see immediate rate cut again. But obviously, the last time around, we peaked at 9% on the 10-year GSEC. It went down to 4.5%. This time around, we have peaked at maybe 8.5, 8.6. And as interest rates come down over the next 6, 12, 18 months, you're going to see a lot of this actually getting alleviated. And most of the negatives are already there in the price. I mean, there's nothing which is coming incrementally as a negative, even as the PSU banks are concerned. But you see the core income growth is fairly okay. The net interest margins are fairly okay. It's basically on the restructured loan as well the NPAs where there's a sort of some concern. And now incrementally, the Basel III guidelines, you need additional capital, etc. But I would tend to believe that most of the negatives are out, even as the PSU bank names would be concerned.
Let's stay here with the consumption story. We have a slew of earnings next week, which start off with the consumption space being in focus. HUL, Marico, Dabur would be the top FMCG companies detailing numbers. Manish, any expectations? The consumption theme, I would say, is the only one which has been holding around despite the markets around them falling like anything. How would you play these earnings next week?
Yeah, I think this is one of the favored spaces to be in. But looking at Nestle's numbers, what one wonders whether the volume growth is going to hold out, because even in the case of Nestle, we have not really seen any volume growth. What we have seen is only value growth, and at the same time, because of superior pricing power, they have been able to expand their margins. I think there will come a stage where at an inflection point you would see inflation biting and volume growth actually tapering off. Maybe that would be the time when de-rating of consumption space would happen. So for the next week, these names which are actually declaring numbers, I would keenly watch out for volume growth as one of the most important parameters and see how things are as far as the consumption on the staple side would look like.
Let's stay here with the consumption story. We have auto numbers which come out for the month of April. Manish, how would you play the auto theme? Do you think the numbers could be fairly strong?
Yeah, I think two-wheelers, because of the marriage season, should report strong numbers. I think within that space, it should be the Hero group which should report pretty strong numbers. I think there is problem in the 150cc margin, 150cc segments. It's more of a volume growth which you're going to see in the 100cc and 125cc. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag as far as two-wheelers are concerned. As far as four-wheelers are concerned, I think LCV and Maruti's volumes are going to be pretty robust, and Tata Motors on the back of JLR and your domestic LCV volumes and passenger cars should be pretty decent. I don't see too much of a slowdown, at least for the month of April. We should look at things, how things move beyond May, and after the monsoons have actually set in.
Yes, Manish, thank you so much for making time. It's always a pleasure having you with us.